Quel accueil. Merci. Bonjour.
Thank you. Good afternoon. When you're a baby, when it's your first minute in life, you're naked, you're all wet, and then things get worse for the rest of your life. Unfortunately, this is true for mankind, for people who are not included, socially included. And of course, since we are here discussing about positive economics, let's see how we can include those people and try and find methodologies and techniques to find solutions. And microfinance is a tool. We think that we know this tool because we hear quite a lot about microcredits and so on. But the realities behind this concept are quite different, and we'll see how microfinance leads to micro-entrepreneurship and to social inclusion. First of all, what is important to point out is that whenever we say micro, it doesn't mean that necessarily that it is small. Most of us know a bit of physics, and you have heard of quantum physics versus general physics. General physics, you know the major laws of general physics. It's gravitation, but when you deal with atoms, you do not see it. It's small, but it's much more powerful than what you observe at a general level. And in economics and around this topic of exclusion and microfinance, we see strength forces growing at a very small level. These forces produce a very powerful effect. Why microfinance? In a perfect system, we could imagine that banks are going to lend money to people who like to undertake things, but in reality, we know that 2.5 billion people do not have access to financial services. And why? Because you lend money only to rich people, and the rich people only lend money to rich people, which is a conceptual mistake because the reimbursement rates of the richer people are not as good, much worse than the reimbursement rate of the poorest. So the poor is probably the ideal customer of the financial institution, provided that banks accept to consider that, yes, okay, the management cost is of a small credit is high, but the return on investment is interesting because the risk level is very low, and it would require a change in mentality among the financial institutions. Let's hope that events such as this one around positive economics leads to a change in mindset among bankers. But until now, unfortunately, we have to imagine alternative solutions and set up institutions and organizations which are going to play this role to lend money to the poor. Needs are the same, in fact, whether you're rich or poor. Everyone needs money to finance your project. Everyone needs to protect the money, knowing that it's not safe to put your money under your mattress. You need to take your money as well to buy what you need to buy. And in some cases, after those operations, some people may have enough money left to invest this money. Once again, very few structures exist to meet this demand, and therefore there is an urgent need to set up microfinance institutions. Yunus has launched that about 30 years ago. Planet Finance has been active now in the last 15 years. And even if we do not know microfinance in the details of operation, well, microfinance exists. And so much so that in some places, microfinance and the money lent by microfinance becomes a commodity. Microfinance should no longer be a goal per se, but just a means. And a means with a very huge impact, because it's nice to have money, but what matters is to use this money so that activities can be developed. And that's why we talk of micro-entrepreneurship. We keep saying micro because those activities are on a small scale, requiring limited investments and generating revenues, enough income anyway, to bring to the recipients things which may seem commonplace to us, but which is not the case in some countries. This income allows them to have a decent level of living, some dignity, social inclusion, access to healthcare, to education. So that's good for the future generation, and this future generation will take over in the country involved. So it's a micro action, a micro topic, but having a huge impact at a macroeconomic level. So you have these actions of inclusion and activities generating income. We find such actions in all sectors. The first sector coming up to our mind is the agri-food sector. Even if yesterday we told us that we're going to eat insects soon, we'll have to keep on producing different formats of food to meet the growing demand of a growing population. But for that, you need to have a plot to cultivate, you need money to... And so it has an impact on billions of people and economic stakeholders. They require money to produce what is necessary to have something to eat, and therefore to be able to work. It is a virtuous chain. Here we deal with basic requirements, and we have to meet those requirements in an adapted way. But if you broaden the line of reasoning, and if you see what is necessary for the whole planet, we arrive at energy, and if you do not have access to sources of energy, there will be no productive activity either. So we're upstream, you see. We need money to be lent by the microfinance institutions, irrigating the production lines or chains, giving what is necessary to get clothes or to get food. This is a spiral. It is quite a common spiral to us living in countries, structured countries where everything is organized and where it works more or less, whereas in some regions or countries, those structures do not exist. We have to trigger this. And at the origin, what do we find? We find money. It's always the same problem. So microfinance is a system built around this ecosystem. Microfinance is probably one response, one solution, maybe not always adapted, and it has been quite criticized as well. Some have abused. It was said that it was a disguised way of making money on the back of poor people. So in any systems, there will be always people bypassing the rules and benefiting from the system. Churchill said on democracy it's probably the worst system, but it is at the exception of all others. So it is important to work on this microfinance and in order to make sure that this money which is lent to trigger those activities becomes a commodity. Money somehow should be a commodity. It should be regarded as indispensable as water, energy, or the other substances indispensable for life, because without money, nothing can grow. We could even establish a parallel with our economies. Money and the cost of money, it's a bit like someone who would like to run a marathon with a backpack with 5 kilos on the back. If such was the case, if the money is lent at an expensive level, it's going to be an obstacle for the development of this activity and for the economic development of the country. So systems regarding money as a commodity could be regulated. Money could be put at the disposal at a normal rate, and entrepreneurs using this money could use this money at a good rate in order to grow their activities. And we could have this system as well in our countries. So that's one point. Microfinance. We know microfinance in the format of microcredits, but we see now techniques developing around microfinance, strengthening the access. Up until now, an entrepreneur, an inhabitant of a rural area who would like to have some money would find it difficult to have a microfinance institution not far away from his place. New technologies, however, allow us to bypass or to those obstacles. We generalize the intangible or virtual means of payment. We can forward information around financial information in order to insist on the fact that people have to save money and so on. Thanks to mobile phones as well, you can have access to poor people. We know the objective of a bank, but among those 2.5 billion people who are not as lucky as we are, the concept of having access to money, of putting money aside to prepare for the future, this is completely different. So the use of those means allows you to generalize access to microfinance, and technologies will allow to catch up on the delay. And we saw that happening in other fields. The generalization of telephones. Some countries went directly from no telephone at all to mobile phones. So they just skip the step of the fixed line or the copper line, and they directly went to the wireless. So technologies would allow us to catch up on this delay, and this way, provided that, of course, stakeholders are responsible and know exactly how to do things, we can imagine that people can catch up on this delay. And in some countries, using microfinance and technologies like Kenya, for instance, have reached a level of development which is quite good. Of course, it is not comparable with the level of development of developed countries, but they made very quick progress this way. And to conclude my presentation, let me give you a few illustrations of projects which can be conducted around those topics of microfinance, microenergy, and so on and so forth. I have in mind some projects conducted in Indonesia around food safety. Public donors and NGOs and microfinance stakeholders work all together so as to design financial products for Indonesian farmers, and this way it was possible to strengthen food safety, and thousands of borrowers produced millions of tons of food products, foodstuffs, nourishing a lot of people. So this is a concrete case. You see, you start from finance, a financial situation adapted to the population, right up to a finished product, the end product. In other fields, microenergy, I have in mind a project in Morocco. The goal was to promote the development of renewable energies, which is laudable because, and what is important here is that this project led to we lent money to people buying fridges so that cans could be stored in the fridges, and they could sell then the cans and so on. So it was. So in the end, you always have the concept of production. Entrepreneurship relies upon energy, and this access to energy allows us to manage social and economic and financial inclusion through jobs. And you can imagine afterwards further possibilities. Thanks to this access to energy. Energy will allow them to move, to find a job, or to create a company where people are, where customers are. Energy will give access to means of production so that they can work under much better conditions than the previous techniques resulting to polluting fuels. So there is a virtuous circle around those systems, and we see a plethora of projects in that field. And it is not a perfect system, of course, but microfinance and micro-entrepreneurship are solutions and help people who are excluded, help people to be socially and economically included. Thank you.